These are the Collison brothers, Patrick and John, the founders of Stripe. And in 2008, they had just sold their first startup for $5 million, making the teenagers multi-millionaires overnight. And when most normal 17 and 19-year-olds who made that kind of money would stop working and spend the next few years partying or buying luxury goods, the Collisons weren't satisfied. They wanted to make an even bigger impact on the world. So in 2009, after being frustrated by what was happening in the payment industry, they took a vacation to South America, where in just 30 days, the brothers proceeded to build a software company that we now know as Stripe. A startup that would soon be trusted by many of the world's greatest businesses and go on to become one of the largest private companies in the world. So how were two nerdy teenagers who had no access to the internet growing up able to found one of the largest private companies in the world, each becoming multi-billionaires along the way? Let's find out. Patrick and John Collison were born in 1988 and 1990 respectively in a small rural village in Ireland with a population of barely 100 people. Here, their father Dennis was an electrical engineer who worked for Dell before getting into entrepreneurship after buying a 24-bedroom lakeside hotel, while their mother Lily was a trained microbiologist who also got into entrepreneurship, founding a corporate training company just 3 weeks after giving birth to Patrick. Growing up in such a rural area resulted in the Collison brothers being rather secluded as kids, and during their early years, many of their friends didn't live anywhere close to them. And to make things worse, they didn't even have internet access during this time. Forced to find their own interests, the brothers each grew up reading 2 books a day on just about any topic imaginable. That is, until one day, Patrick selected a couple of books from the library on computer programming, where they were immediately hooked. Determined to learn more, the two convinced their parents to install a special satellite for them so they could get internet access. And from then on, the two brothers started spending every spare minute learning how to code. This dedication to learning quickly paid off, and just a few years later, at the age of 15, Patrick finished second in Ireland's Young Scientist Technology exhibition, before winning the award the following year for creating a Lisp-type programming language, which he used to build an AI messaging system. John, who was 2 years younger, also excelled during this time, and he received the highest scores ever recorded in the Irish leaving exams, the equivalent of finals in the US, breaking his brother's record. So growing up, the Collison brothers were always considered very smart, and over the coming years, they would put that to good use. Looking to get ahead, Patrick finished high school early by taking 2 years worth of exams in just 20 days, acing them all, and then proceeded to enroll at MIT in Boston when he was just 16, based on an SAT test he took when he was 13. Patrick's time in Boston didn't last long though, and during his brother's gap year, the two began talking about starting their first company. As a result, after the first quarter of Patrick's freshman year, he dropped out and moved back to Ireland to work on a startup with his brother. Together again, the two began tinkering around with the idea of creating a better eBay, because they thought eBay was really cool, but it wasn't innovative enough, so they saw an opportunity to add some value. And as a result, when they were just 15 and 17, they decided to launch a new startup called Shupa, which was a software-as-a-service platform that helped big sellers on eBay track inventory and traffic. In need of funds, the Collisons turned to their home country of Ireland, but after very little interest, they decided to apply for Y Combinator, a startup accelerator in San Francisco, which took them in. Using Y Combinator, the Collisons got connected to an older pair of brothers who were already in the program working on a similar idea. And in May of 2007, the four of them came together to form a new company called Automatic. Over the next few months, the team poured all of their energy into building out their software. Then things started to move fast, and after raising some money from investors, the company was acquired by Live Current Media in 2008 for $5 million, just 10 months after being incorporated, making both of the Collison brothers millionaires overnight at just 17 and 19. And while that was life-changing money for someone that age, the Collison brothers were determined to build something even better. Following this acquisition, Patrick decided to move to Canada, where he worked as a director of engineering for Automatic, while John began attending Harvard. However, Patrick quickly felt that his startup experience was coming to an end, and after a year of working at the company, he decided to re-enroll at MIT, where he once again began working on side projects with his brother. Here, the two spent their spare time developing iPhone apps, where one of their first hits was an offline version of Wikipedia that people could install on their phones, which ended up getting a couple 100,000 installs. After working on a few other projects, the two began wondering why it was that they never charged anyone for any of the software they were building. And the simple answer was that while it was getting increasingly easier to develop apps, there were really no easy and efficient ways to accept payments. All of the existing systems were difficult, expensive, and plagued with delays, so in October of 2009, the duo got the idea to build a better payment infrastructure. However, because of their student visas, the brothers needed to leave the country if they wanted to work on this project. So during their winter break, Patrick and John decided to take a vacation to the capital of Argentina, where they went to the cafe and coded all day. And after an entire month of doing this, the two developed their first payment prototype, called Dev/Payments, later renamed Stripe. In less than 1 week after that, the new company accepted their first transaction from their friend, Ross Butcher, who actually ended up becoming Stripe's first employee. Even though the platform predictably had some hiccups, like the fact that you couldn't even transfer money to your bank, much of it was actually pretty similar to what Stripe is known for today, and it let companies go to their website, fill in minimal information, and start accepting credit cards within 30 minutes, something that had previously taken 4 to 5 days. So in just 1 month, the Collisons had built something pretty useful, even though it was still just a prototype. Despite this initial success, both Patrick and John returned to school by the end of January, and for months, they really only viewed Stripe as a cool side project. However, the potential of this new project eventually hit the two, and even though Stripe hadn't officially launched yet, they noticed that through just word of mouth, thousands of people had already signed up for their waiting list. As a result, the Collisons decided it was time to take Stripe much more seriously, and by the summer of 2010, they both dropped out of school and started working on Stripe full-time. Over the course of the summer, as the two spent more time in the industry, Patrick and John really began to recognize the opportunity that Stripe had in front of them. So naturally, the brothers decided it was time to put their foot on the gas and take their startup to the next level. Even though the two wanted to bootstrap the project themselves, the two made the decision to turn towards external funding, which was a little more uncertain route. However, given their slew of test users and connections at Y Combinator, Stripe quickly began to attract some marquee investors, and in 2010 and 11, they raised $2 million from tech names like Andreessen Horowitz and Sequoia, as well as PayPal founders Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, which was validation that they were doing something right, since at the time, PayPal was considered their biggest competitor. Then, over the following months, the now well-funded team laid low and went into full-on building mode in anticipation of their official launch. After 14 months of building the final product, the day had finally come, and on September 29th of 2011, Stripe officially launched to the public, releasing a simple payment API that allowed businesses to accept credit cards on their website by just copy and pasting a few lines of code, which was their main selling point. In exchange, Stripe would take a small fee, typically around 2.9% of the transaction cost, plus 30 cents per charge. Largely driven by word of mouth among developers, which is who Stripe wanted to cater towards, more and more deals followed, and in short order, the company inked partnerships with a variety of the world's largest companies. And in less than 18 months, Stripe was already processing over $1 billion in annualized transactions. As a result of this explosive growth, the company's valuation quickly began to follow, and the once $20 million company in 2011 was now valued at a stunning $9.2 billion, making each of the Collison brothers billionaires and earning John the title of the world's youngest billionaire at just 26. As a result, the company soon realized that they were perfectly positioned to release similar products to make even more money, and that they did. Over the coming years, they launched additional services like helping founders start businesses, point-of-sales terminals, invoicing, cash advances, and lots more, which has helped the company reach a record revenue number of $12 billion a year from their now 2 million customers. As a result, Stripe has raised a new round of funding nearly every year, seeing its valuation grow every time, and by 2021, the company peaked at a whopping $95 billion. even though that would be lowered as the market crumbled the following year. Despite that, the Collisons' personal wealth still remains at an impressive number, and they're currently each worth over $8 billion, making them two of the richest people in the world. And with all this money? Well, the brothers have made a few very splashy purchases overseas, and in 2021, John bought a 27,000 square foot mansion in Ireland for 20 million euros, and was part of a group that bought the Western Airport in Dublin for 12 million euros. The duo also bought another 9,000 square foot mansion in Ireland for about 400,000 euros, which they plan to restore. So with all this new wealth, the Collisons made a few very impressive purchases. And considering their journey with Stripe all started while taking a vacation to Argentina, where they developed one of the most valuable companies in the world, worth billions, it definitely makes the Collison brothers story something you don't hear about every day.